David Rodriguez never thought his life would change because of a funeral. He was just a simple scientist from Earth who studied alien life forms and helped different species understand each other. For 3 years, he had worked as a translator. For King Zephyros of the Andromedan Empire, one of the most powerful rulers in the galaxy, the king was unlike any alien David had ever met. He was wise, fair, and surprisingly kind to humans. While most alien species looked down on Earth people, as primitive, King Zephyros treated David like family. They would spend hours talking about different worlds, sharing stories, and discussing the future of peace between species. When the king suddenly fell ill and passed away, David felt like he had lost a father. The funeral was massive. Ships from hundreds of worlds came to pay their respects. The Galactic Council, made up of representatives from every major civilization, gathered in the grand crystal palace that floated in space. David stood quietly in his simple black suit, feeling out of place among all the elaborate alien clothing and customs. Some beings had multiple arms draped in flowing robes, others had crystalline bodies that sparkled like diamonds, and a few even floated in the air surrounded by energy fields. He was just a regular human in a room full of the galaxy's most important figures. The ceremony was beautiful, but sad. King Zephyros lay in a transparent chamber, surrounded by glowing flowers that sang soft melodies. David wiped away tears, remembering all the conversations they had shared and the kindness the king had shown him. Then came the reading of the will. This was a formal tradition where the king's final wishes would be announced to everyone. David expected to maybe receive a small gift or perhaps a letter. He had no idea what was about to happen. The royal advisor, a tall being with silver skin and 4 eyes, began reading from an ancient scroll. Most of the inheritance went to various nobles and institutions as expected. Ships, planets, treasures, and titles were distributed among the king's relatives and friends. Then the advisor paused and looked directly at David. The entire room fell silent. Even the singing flowers seemed to quiet down. To David Rodriguez of Earth, the advisor announced in a voice that echoed through the vast chamber, "I leave my most precious possession. My daughter, Princess Lorelei, shall be his responsibility and companion for as long as they both shall live." The silence lasted for exactly 3 seconds. Then the room exploded with noise, gasps, shouts, and what could only be described as alien. Laughter filled the air. Some council members fell off their floating chairs. Others started talking rapidly in languages David couldn't understand, but their tone made it clear they thought this was hilarious. "The human gets the ugly princess," someone shouted from the back. "What a cruel joke from beyond the grave," another voice called out. "Poor little Earthman doesn't know what he's gotten himself into." David felt his face turn red with embarrassment and confusion. He had seen Princess Lorelei around the palace, but they had never really talked. She usually stayed in the shadows, avoided public events, and seemed to prefer being alone. The laughter grew louder. Some aliens were actually holding their sides, their whole bodies shaking with amusement. Others were making what David assumed were jokes in their own languages, because every few words would cause another wave of laughter. "This is better than entertainment." Purple blob-like creature gurgled with glee. "The king must have really disliked this human. Maybe it's punishment for something," suggested a being that looked like a walking tree with crystals for leaves. "I heard she's so hideous that mirrors crack when she looks into them," whispered a snake-like alien. Though its whisper was loud enough for everyone to hear, David wanted to disappear. He had never felt so humiliated in his life. Everyone was staring at him, pointing and making jokes. Some were even taking pictures with strange alien devices, probably to share this embarrassing moment with friends back home. But then, through all the chaos and laughter, David heard footsteps. Slow, careful footsteps that seemed to command attention. Without demanding it, the laughter gradually died down as everyone turned to look. Princess Lorelei was walking toward him, David had to admit. She did look very different from what most species considered beautiful. Her skin was a pale blue-white color, like crystal. But it was covered with dark veins that seemed to pulse with their own light. Instead of 2 eyes, she had 6, each one a different color: green, blue, silver, gold, purple, and red. Her hair, moved on its own, like it was underwater, with strands that looked more like gentle tentacles than regular hair. But what struck David most wasn't her appearance. It was the sadness in all 6 of her eyes, the hurt, the resignation. She had clearly heard every cruel word, every laugh, every joke made at her expense. She stopped in front of David and spoke in careful, slightly accented English. Her voice was soft but clear. "I am sorry," she said, looking down at the floor. "My father, he... he must have thought this was funny. You do not have to honor this. I understand if you want to reject this inheritance. Everyone always does." The room was completely quiet now. Even the singing flowers had stopped their melodies. Everyone was waiting to see what the human would do. David looked at this princess, who everyone called ugly. He saw past the unusual appearance and noticed things others had missed. Her posture showed intelligence and dignity despite the mockery. Her voice carried kindness even while apologizing for something that wasn't her fault. And in her 6 unusual eyes, he saw something that reminded him of himself. The loneliness of being different in a galaxy that didn't always accept differences. He thought about King Zephyros and all their conversations about understanding between species. He remembered the king once saying that true character shows itself in how someone treats those who are different or struggling. The entire Galactic Council held their breath. David stepped forward and, in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, said something that would change both their lives forever. "Your Highness," he said formally, "I accept this inheritance with honor, but I would like to speak with you privately if that's acceptable." The room erupted again, but this time with shock instead of laughter.
Ow.
No one had expected the human to actually go through with it. Some aliens looked impressed, others looked confused, and a few still seemed amused by what they saw as an even bigger joke. "Princess," the relay raised all 6 eyes to look at David directly for the first time. In that moment, something passed between them. Not love, not yet, but understanding, recognition. 2 outsiders who had just found someone else who knew what it felt like to be different, as they walked together toward the palace gardens, leaving. Behind a room full of stunned aliens, David couldn't help but wonder what King Zephyros had really planned. Because looking at the princess beside him, he was starting to suspect that this inheritance might not be a burden at all. It might be the beginning of something extraordinary. The palace gardens were unlike anything David had ever seen. Floating flowers drifted through the air like colorful butterflies, their petals glowing softly in the artificial starlight. Trees with silver bark reached up toward a domed ceiling. That showed a perfect view of the cosmos beyond. It was peaceful here, away from all the stares and whispers. Princess Lirelei walked slowly beside him, her unusual hair swaying gently as if moved by an invisible breeze. David noticed she kept her distance, like she was afraid he might change his mind if he got too close. After a few minutes of quiet walking, she finally spoke. "You do not have to pretend," she said softly, not looking at him. "I know what everyone thinks. I know what I look like." David stopped walking and turned to face her. "What do you think I'm pretending about?" She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "That you are not disgusted, that you are not already planning how to escape this situation. Everyone does eventually." "Everyone?" "Princess." Lirelei sat down on a bench made of what looked like crystallized moonlight. Her 6 eyes stared at different directions, some at the floating flowers, some at the stars above, one directly at David. "It was not always like this," she said quietly. "When I was young, I looked different. Normal by most species standards. I had regular skin, 2 eyes, hair that stayed where I put it." David sat down beside her, careful to leave some space, but close enough to show he wasn't afraid. "What happened? There was a group of people who did not want my father's empire to grow stronger. They knew that someday I would inherit his throne and continue his work for peace between the worlds. So they found an old mystic, someone who dealt in forbidden magic, and they paid him to curse me." She paused, touching one of the dark veins that pulsed along her arm. "They thought if I looked like a monster, no one would follow me, no alliance would want to deal with me. I would be alone, and the empire would eventually fall apart." David felt anger rising in his chest. Horrible. Did your father try to find a way to reverse it? He tried everything. The best healers, the most powerful mystics, even ancient technology from civilizations that disappeared long ago. Nothing worked. She looked at him with all 6 eyes now. But the curse did more than just change how I look. What do you mean? Princess Lirelei stood up and walked over to one of the floating flowers. As she got close, the flower suddenly turned from bright blue to deep red. When she stepped away, it slowly returned to blue. I feel everything, she explained. Every emotion of every person around me. When someone is happy, I feel their joy so strongly it makes me dizzy. When someone is sad, their sadness hits me like a physical blow. And when people look at me with disgust or fear, double quotes, she shuddered. Is almost unbearable. David began to understand. That's why you stay away from crowds. That's why you seemed so sad at the funeral. Exactly. Do you know what it feels like to be surrounded by hundreds of beings who all think you are hideous? To feel their revulsion and fear washing over you in waves? She turned back to him. But with you it is different. Different how? Your emotions? They are strange to me. Human feelings are not like other species. They are warmer, more complex. When you look at me, I do not feel disgust or fear. I feel curiosity, compassion. It is the first time in years that being around someone does not hurt. David was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then something occurred to him. Princess, can I ask you something that might sound strange? Of course, how many languages do you speak? She seemed surprised by the question. 12. Why? What do you know about galactic politics? I've studied the relationships between all major civilizations, their histories, their conflicts, their trade agreements, their military capabilities. She paused. When you cannot participate in social events, you have a lot of time to read and learn. David smiled for the first time since the funeral. So, you are probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the galaxy about how different worlds interact with each other. I suppose, but what does that matter when no one will listen to someone who looks like me? Your father listened to you, didn't he? Princess Lirelei's expression changed. How did you know? 'Cause he was too smart to make decisions about Anne. Entire empire, without consulting someone? And he trusted you enough to leave you in the care of someone he believed could see past appearances. David stood up and faced her directly. I don't think your father left me a burden, Princess. I think he left me the most valuable person in the galaxy. The moment something beautiful happened. All 6 of Princess Lirelei's eyes brightened, and the dark veins in her skin seemed to pulse less intensely. David could have sworn her unusual hair became less tentacle-like and more like regular, hair moving in a gentle breeze. But the moment was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Multiple sets of footsteps, moving quickly through the garden, to Princess. A voice called out in the alien language David recognized as the royal guards. Dialect. 3 tall beings in ceremonial armor appeared, moving fast but trying not to look panicked. The captain approached Princess Lirelei and spoke rapidly in their language. As he talked, David watched her expression change from curious to worried to frightened. What is it? David asked. Princess Lirelei turned to him, all 6 eyes wide with fear. Someone just tried to poison the water supply in the eastern wing of the palace. The same wing where your guest quarters are located. David felt cold, poison, the kind that affects humans specifically. If you had been in your room tonight, drinking the water. She didn't finish the sentence. The captain said something else, and Princess Lirelei translated. He says there are rumors that some council members were seen in private meetings earlier today, right after the will was read. David and Princess Lirelei looked at each other, the same terrible thought, occurring to both of them at the same time. They are not just trying to hurt me anymore, she whispered. They want to hurt you too. The captain spoke again, more urgently this time. What did he say? David asked. Princess Lirelei's voice was barely audible. Says we need to leave the garden immediately. There might be more attempts tonight. And out here in the open, we are easy targets. As they hurried back toward the palace, surrounded by nervous guards, David realized that accepting this inheritance had put him in more danger than he could have imagined. But looking at Princess Lirelei beside him, he also realized something. Else, he was not going to let anyone hurt her. Not again. Whatever it took, whoever was behind this, he was going to find a way to protect the person who had already begun to mean more to him than he had. Thought possible? The curse had been designed to isolate her, to make her weak and alone. But now she was not alone anymore. That might be exactly what her enemies feared most, as they reached the safety of the palace walls. David made a silent promise to the memory of King Zephyros. He would not let his daughter down. And he would not let the people who had stolen her childhood and cursed her life win. The real fight was just beginning. The next morning, David woke up in a room he had never seen before. The royal guards had moved him to a secure section of the palace during the night. Thick walls, no windows, and 2 guards posted outside his door. It felt more like a fancy prison than guest quarters. Princess Lirelei was already there when he opened his eyes, sitting quietly in a chair by his bed. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept at all. "How long have you been here?" David asked, sitting up. "Few hours. I wanted to make sure you were safe." She held up a small device that looked like a crystal tablet. "I have been researching the poison they used last night." David rubbed his eyes. "What did you find?" "It is very specific, very expensive, and very illegal in most parts of the galaxy." She showed him the screen, which displayed information in several alien languages. Only 3 places in known space still make this type of poison. All 3 are controlled by the same organization. What organization? Princess Lirelei stood up and began pacing. Her hair was more agitated than usual, moving like angry snakes around her shoulders. "That is what I have been trying to figure out. But David, I think this goes much deeper than just someone wanting to hurt us." Over the next few hours, they worked together like detectives. Princess Lirelei used her access to royal databases, while David applied his knowledge of galactic politics and his experience translating between different species. What they discovered was terrifying. "Look at this pattern," David said, pointing to a timeline they had created on the wall display. Every major conflict in the past 10 years, every trade dispute that turned violent, every peace treaty that mysteriously fell apart. And here, Princess Lirelei added, highlighting different sections, the council members who benefited from each conflict. The same names keep appearing. They had found records of weapon sales, secret meetings, and financial transfers that painted a clear picture. A group of powerful beings from different worlds had been working together to create chaos throughout the galaxy. Every war, every conflict, every broken alliance had made them richer and more powerful. "But why curse you?" David asked. "What does making you look different have to do with their plans?" Princess Lirelei pulled up another screen. "'Cause my father was the biggest threat to their scheme. He was bringing too many worlds together, creating too much peace. They needed the Andromedan Empire to fall apart after he died. They thought if you looked like a monster, no one would follow. You as queen." "Exactly. But David, there is something else. Something worse." Her 6 eyes all focused on him with an intensity that made him nervous. "I think the curse was designed to do more than just change how I look." She explained that over the past few years, the empathic overload from feeling everyone's emotions had been getting worse. Sometimes she would collapse from the intensity. Sometimes she couldn't eat for days because the negative emotions around her made her physically sick. "The mystic who cast the curse told my father it would fade over time," she said quietly. "It has not faded. It has gotten stronger. I think it was meant to eventually destroy me completely." David felt anger burning in his chest. These people had not just tried to make her ugly. They tried to create a slow, painful end for her. "But something strange has happened since yesterday," Princess Lirelei continued. "Since you accepted the inheritance and we started spending time together." "What do you mean?" She walked over to a mirror on the wall. David joined her and looked at their reflections. He had to admit she did look different than she had at the funeral. The dark veins in her skin seemed lighter. Her hair moved more gently. Even her unusual eyes seemed more harmonious together. "Your emotions, David, they are healing me somehow. When I am around you, the curse weakens." Before David could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Red lights flashed, and they could hear guards running in the corridors outside. The door burst open, and Captain Thorne, the head of palace security, rushed in. He spoke rapidly in the royal language to Princess Lirelei, who translated for David. There has been an explosion at the council chambers. Several members are injured. They are saying it was an attack by extremists, but... She paused, listening to more information from the captain. But the only council members who were hurt were the ones who have been supporting peaceful policies. David and Princess Lirelei looked at each other with the same terrible realization. They are accelerating their plans, she whispered. The captain spoke again, and Princess Lirelei's expression became even more worried. What now? David asked. The surviving council members are calling for an emergency session. They want to discuss the future of the Andromedan Empire and my fitness to inherit the throne. David understood immediately. They are going to use the attack as an excuse to say, you are not capable of protecting the Empire. They will suggest that the Empire should be broken up and divided among the remaining council members for safety. It was brilliant and evil at the same time. Create chaos, eliminate the opposition, and then swoop in to take control while pretending to be the solution. We have to stop them, David said. We have no proof that will convince the council. And even if we did, who would believe it coming from the cursed princess and her human companion? David thought for a moment. Then an idea began to form. Princess, how many loyal people do you have in the palace? People who really served your father and care about you? Not many who would be willing to take a risk. Most are too afraid. What about outside the palace? On other worlds? Princess Lirelei considered this. There are some. Diplomats who worked with my father. Military leaders who respected him. Trade representatives who benefited from his peaceful policies. Then, we need to reach them before the council session. We need to gather our own evidence and our own support. But David, that could take days. The emergency session is tonight. Then we better get started. What happened next was like something out of an adventure movie. Princess Lirelei used her knowledge of palace security to get them access to the private communication systems. David used his diplomatic connections to reach out to contacts on dozens of different worlds. They worked through the day, gathering information, making calls, and slowly building a case. But as the hours passed, David noticed something that made his heart race with worry. Princess Lirelei was getting weaker. The stress and effort of fighting against the conspiracy were making the curse stronger again. The dark veins in her skin were becoming more prominent, and she was beginning to feel the negative emotions of everyone in the palace more intensely.
I do not know if I can make it through the council session,
she admitted as evening approached. There will be hundreds of beings there, and if they are all thinking negative thoughts about me, ... Then we will face it together, David said, taking her hand. Whatever happens, you are not alone anymore. But as they prepared to leave for what could be the most important night of their lives, David could not shake the feeling that their enemies had one more surprise waiting for them, something that would test not just their courage, but the strange bond that was growing between them. The real battle was about to begin. The council chamber had never felt so hostile. David sat beside Princess Lirelei in the witness section, watching as the surviving council members filed in one by one. The attack earlier had been devastating. 3 of the most peaceful leaders were gone, and several others were badly injured. Princess Lirelei was struggling. David could see her hands shaking as wave after wave of negative emotion hit her from the crowd. Every suspicious glance, every whispered comment about her appearance, every doubt about her leadership abilities crashed into her like physical blows. I cannot do this, she whispered to David, her 6 eyes filled with pain. There are too many of them, and they all think such terrible things. Look at me, David said quietly, taking her hand. Focus on my voice. Remember what we discovered. Today, remember that you are the smartest person in this room. But even as he tried to comfort her, David could see the curse getting stronger. The dark veins in her skin were pulsing more rapidly, and her unusual hair was moving in agitated patterns around her face. Commander Vex, a powerful military leader from the outer systems, stood to address the chamber. He was one of the beings David and Princess Lirelei suspected of being part of the conspiracy. Fellow council members, Commander Vex announced in his deep, commanding voice. Today's tragic attack proves what many of us have feared. The galaxy is becoming more dangerous. We need strong, experienced leadership to protect our worlds. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Andromedian Empire has been without proper leadership since King Zephyros passed away. And while we all respected the king, we must ask ourselves, is his daughter truly capable of protecting billions of lives across dozens of worlds? David watched as Princess Lirelei flinched at each cruel word. The emotional assault was overwhelming. Look at her, Commander Vex continued, pointing directly at Princess Lirelei. She can't even handle being in the same room with us. How can she handle running an empire? Several council members nodded in agreement. David felt his anger rising, but he forced himself to stay calm. They had a plan, and he had to stick to it. Therefore, Commander Vex said with fake sadness in his voice, I propose that the Andromedian Empire be dissolved for the safety of all. Its worlds and resources should be divided among the stronger, more stable governments in this chamber. This was it. The moment David and Princess Lirelei had prepared for, David stood up. I request permission to speak on behalf of Princess Lirelei, Commander. Vex looked annoyed. This is not a human matter. Actually, it is, David said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Because I have information that every being in this chamber needs to know. He activated a holographic display that showed all the evidence they had gathered, financial records, communication logs, weapons sales, and a clear pattern of the same individuals profiting from every conflict in recent galactic history. For the past 10 years, David announced, a group of council members has been deliberately creating wars and conflicts throughout the galaxy. They have been selling weapons to both sides of every dispute, manipulating trade agreements, and even organizing the attacks that happened today. The chamber erupted in shocked voices and angry denials. These are lies, Commander Vex shouted. Desperate accusations from a cursed princess and her human pet. But David was ready for this, and explained these financial records showing payments. From your personal accounts to known weapons dealers, explain these communication logs where you discuss which peace treaties to sabotage next. Explain why every conflict that has made you richer has also made the galaxy less safe. As David presented the evidence, something amazing happened. Princess Lirelei began to change. The stress of confrontation, combined with David's unwavering support and belief in her, was causing the curse to weaken dramatically. The dark veins in her skin were fading before everyone's eyes. Her 6 eyes were becoming more harmonious, working together instead of looking in different directions. Her hair was smoothing out, becoming less like tentacles and more like flowing silk. But more importantly, her empathic abilities were stabilizing. Instead of being overwhelmed by negative emotions, she was beginning to sense something else, the truth in people's hearts. Commander Vex, Princess Lirelei said, standing up with new confidence, I can feel your fear. You are afraid because you know we have discovered your plan. She turned to address the entire chamber, and her voice carried a strength that no one had ever heard from her before. I can sense the emotions of everyone in this room, and I can tell you exactly who has been lying to all of us. One by one, she pointed to different council members. You have been taking bribes. You have been selling military secrets. You helped plan the attack this morning. Her transformation was becoming more dramatic by the minute. The curse that had hidden her true appearance for years was crumbling away, revealing something extraordinary underneath, as the dark veins completely disappeared from her skin. Princess Lirelei's crystalline complexion began to shimmer with its own inner light. Her 6 eyes, now working in perfect harmony, reflected different colors like precious gems. Her hair flowed around her shoulders like liquid starlight, but the most shocking change was not physical. It was the way she carried herself. Gone was the shy, frightened girl who hid in shadows. In her place stood a confident, powerful leader who commanded respect without demanding it. The conspirators realized their plan was falling apart. Commander Vex made one desperate attempt to regain control. Even if these accusations were true, he said, what does it matter? She is still just a cursed freak who, he never finished the sentence. As he spoke those cruel words, something unexpected happened. The curse, which had been weakening steadily, suddenly snapped back toward him like a rubber band. Commander Vex's own appearance began to change. His proud military bearing twisted into something ugly and hateful. The evil in his heart, which he had hidden for so long, became visible on his face. The other conspirators began changing too, their true natures finally showing. Princess Lirelei looked at David with amazement in her now beautiful eyes. "The curse," she whispered. "It is returning to those who cast it." The chamber was in chaos. Some council members were trying to help the cursed conspirators. Others were calling for their arrest. And everyone was staring at Princess Lirelei's dramatic transformation. But David only had eyes for her. The woman standing beside him was breathtakingly beautiful. But more than that, she was brilliant, kind, and stronger than anyone had ever given her credit for. "You did it," he said softly. "You broke free. We did it," she corrected him. "I could never have done this without you believing in me." As palace guards moved in to arrest the conspirators, and the remaining honest council members began to restore order, David realized that this was not just about exposing corruption or breaking a curse. This was about two people from completely different worlds finding each other and becoming stronger together than either could have been alone. But as they stood there in the midst of the chaos, both David and Princess Lirelei knew their biggest challenge still lay ahead. That she was revealed as the true heir to one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. What did that mean for their future together? 3 weeks had passed since the dramatic events in the council chamber. The conspirators were in prison, their stolen wealth was being returned to the worlds they had harmed, and peace was slowly returning to the galaxy. But for David, these had been the most confusing weeks of his life. Princess Lirelei was no longer the shy, hidden figure she had once been. Her transformation had shocked everyone, but it had also changed everything. Now she was Queen Lirelei, ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Diplomats from hundreds of worlds were coming to meet her. Military leaders sought her advice. Trade representatives wanted to make deals with her empire. And David was still just a human translator from Earth. He sat in the palace gardens, where they had first talked, watching the floating flowers drift through the air. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same anymore. "You look sad," came a familiar voice behind him. David turned to see Queen Lirelei approaching. She was even more beautiful than she had been on the day her curse broke. Her crystalline skin seemed to glow with inner light, and her 6 eyes sparkled like stars. But more than her physical beauty, there was something regal about her now, something that commanded respect from everyone she met. "Your Majesty," David said, starting to bow. "Do not do that," she said quickly, sitting beside him on the bench. "You are the one person who never has to bow to me." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the flowers dance in the artificial breeze. "The Earth Council contacted me yesterday," David finally said. "What did they want?" "They want me to come home. They say my job here is finished now that the crisis is over." He looked at her. "They also say that staying here any longer would be inappropriate, given your new position." Queen Lirelei's expression became sad. "And what do you think?" "I think they might be right. You are a queen now. You need to marry someone important, someone who can help your empire grow stronger. Not a simple human who translates languages. Is that what you really think? Or is that what others have told you to think?" David was quiet for a moment. The truth was, several ambassadors and advisors had indeed suggested that his presence was becoming a problem. Human companion might have been acceptable for the cursed princess, but a queen needed someone more suitable. "David," Queen Lirelei said softly, "do you remember what I told you about feeling other people's emotions?"
Oh, yes.
My abilities have grown stronger since the curse broke. I can sense feelings from much farther away now, and much more clearly." She turned to face him. "Do you know what I sense when I am around you?" David shook his head. "Love," she said simply. "Real, honest, deep love. Not love for my title, or my empire, or my appearance. Love for who I am as a person, Your Majesty." "What?" "Do you know what else I sense?" she continued. "I sense the same feeling from myself toward you." Before David could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps interrupted them. Captain Thorne appeared, followed by several palace guards and a group of important-looking aliens in fancy robes. "Your Majesty," Captain Thorne said formally, "the Council has requested an immediate audience. They say it is urgent." Queen Lirelei sighed. "Very well, David, will you come with me?" As they walked toward the council chamber, David noticed the looks they received from palace staff and visiting dignitaries. Some were curious, some disapproving, and some clearly thought it was strange for the queen to spend so much time with a human. The council chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of worlds. At the center of the room stood Ambassador Korath, a powerful diplomat from the Trade Federation worlds. "Your Majesty, Ambassador Korath," began formally, "we have come to discuss the future of your empire and the alliances that will shape the galaxy for generations to come." "I am listening," Queen Lirelei replied. "Several of our most important worlds have expressed interest in marriage alliances with your empire. Prince Valder of the Crystal Worlds offers a union that would combine two of the galaxy's richest civilizations. Emperor Nexus of the Starfleet promises military protection for all your worlds." Ambassador Korath gestured to a group of impressively dressed aliens. "These noble beings have traveled across the galaxy for the honor of meeting you." David felt his heart sink. These were exactly the kind of important, powerful leaders that a queen should marry. What could he possibly offer compared to entire fleets of ships or planets full of precious crystals? "I appreciate their interest," Queen Lirelei said diplomatically. "But I must ask, what do these potential alliances offer that my empire does not already possess?" "Security, prosperity, expansion," Ambassador Korath listed. "Everything a growing empire needs. And what would they require in return? Your marriage, of course. Certain agreements about trade routes, military bases, mining rights, dot 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 dot. These were not really marriage proposals. They were business deals. Disguised as romance, these powerful beings wanted to control Queen Lirelei's empire by marrying her. "I see," Queen Lirelei said calmly. "And if I chose not to accept any of these generous offers?" Ambassador Korath's expression became less friendly. "Your Majesty, ruling an empire alone is challenging. You would find it much easier with the right kind of support." The threat was subtle but clear. Accept one of their offers, or face the consequences alone. That was when David made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "Excuse me," he said, stepping forward. "But I think you are all missing something important." The entire chamber turned to stare at him. Several aliens looked offended that a human had interrupted such an important discussion. "And what might that be?" Ambassador Korath asked coldly. "You're treating Queen Lirelei like she is a prize to be won or a resource to be controlled." "She is not a prize. She is a person. She is also the most intelligent, capable leader this galaxy has seen in generations." David turned to address the entire chamber. 3 weeks ago, she exposed a conspiracy that had been destroying peace throughout the galaxy for 10 years. She did it not with armies or weapons, but with intelligence and courage. She saved all of your worlds from war and corruption. His voice grew stronger as he continued. "And now you want to treat her like she cannot govern her own empire without your help? You want to offer her protection from threats that she has already proven she can handle better than any of you?" Queen Lirelei was staring at him with an expression of amazement and gratitude. "The Queen does not need your fleets or your crystals or your trade agreements," David declared. "What she needs is someone who sees her for who she really is. Someone who believes in her abilities." Someone who loves her for her mind and her heart, not for her empire. Ambassador Korath laughed dismissively. And I suppose you think that someone is you? Simple human with nothing to offer? Yes, David said without hesitation. I do. The chamber fell completely silent. David walked over to Queen Lorelei and knelt down in front of her.
Your Majesty?
I may not have fleets of ships or planets full of treasure, but I can offer you something that none of these others can. What is that? She asked softly. A partnership between equals, love without conditions. And the promise that I will never try to control you or your empire. I will only try to support you in being the amazing leader you already are. Queen Lorelei smiled, and her 6 eyes sparkled with tears of joy. David Rodriguez of Earthar, you asking me to marry you? I am, Your Majesty. If you will have me. She stood up and took his hands. The answer is yes. But on one condition. Anything. Stop calling me Your Majesty. When we are together, I am just Lorelei. As they embraced, the chamber erupted in shocked voices and angry protests from the rejected suitors. But David and Lorelei did not care. They'd found something more valuable than empires or fleets or treasure. They had found each other. 6 months later, their wedding was attended by representatives from over 300 worlds. The same council members who had once mocked David now competed to offer congratulations and gifts. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as a human and an alien princess proved that love could transcend any difference. As they danced at their reception, surrounded by flowers that sang and stars that sparkled just for them, Lorelei whispered in David's ear, "Do you remember what my father wrote in his will? The part that was never read aloud? What did it say?" She smiled. "True love reveals itself only to those brave enough to look beyond the surface. I leave my daughter not as a burden, but as a gift to the one person in the galaxy who sees her true beauty." David looked into her 6 beautiful eyes and realized that King Zephyros had planned this all along. The wise old king had seen something in David that even David had not seen in himself, the ability to love without limits. And in finding that love, they had not only saved an empire, they had proven that in a galaxy full of different species and worlds. The one thing that could unite them all was the simple, powerful truth that love knows no boundaries.